biblically sound investing. So how do we honestly earn money? First of all, most common to most people is a job. You trade your labor, that is your time and effort, for money. You can work for yourself. That may be as simple as creating your own job. You work for yourself as a plumber or a carpenter or a house cleaner or a grass cutter. Uh, Whatever you did in your old job, you may be able to do it for yourself, or you may be able to create some uh, new endeavor, fill some need in your community. You may be able to build onto that, build a business with employees who produce goods and services. What we're talking about today is investing. That means either buying things you think will hold or grow in value, or turning your resources over to someone else, using them to make money. A new business that's riskier, but potentially more profitable. Getting in at the ground level is something that turns out to be big and profitable, maybe even sellable to a larger company. Then there's an established business that's generally more stable, but it's not without risk either. Now, I want to give a warning here about two things I've seen get in people's way of making money in their own business and investing in so many walks of life, particularly with regard to money, is greed and impatience. Greed. We do not set Christ aside for gain in this world. Solomon tells us whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless, vanity, of no eternal value. We don't worship money, but it's easy to devote ourselves to money. That's one reason we have the Sabbath was created so one day a week we would stop working for money. Now, again, Christ should be part of our work every day. Do all work is working for Him, but we just can't devote ourselves to money. That can't be our love. If it is, everything is wrong. So we don't get so focused on that. We leave Christ out of what we're doing. Include Him in what you're doing, and you'll be much better off. Paul tells us in Colossians, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil, desires, and greed, which is idolatry. He's saying to live a life following after Christ, you need to put these things of the nature you came from, the person you were born into. These are part of your natural nature. Put these things to death as you learn to live your new life in Christ. Learn to live and be at home in His light. Fill yourself with His love and goodness and truth. But one of the things he points out is greed. Greed is idolatry. Devoting yourself to pursuit of money. That's what greed is. You want money more than you want Christ in that moment. You're willing to turn your back on God to chase after money because you believe the lie that if you just had so much more money, you would be happy, you would be settled, you would have all you need. But again, like Solomon warns, it's never enough. I've seen people who uh, devote their lives to trying to get enough, and they never get there. They imagine whatever could possibly go wrong in life, and they want to make sure they have enough to cover that, to deal with every possible calamity that comes along. If I can never earn another penny, will my family be able to maintain our lifestyle forever? There's always more danger if you keep looking ahead in that mindset. Now, impatience. Welcome Christ into all your pursuits. James says, be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Now he's talking about being patient, waiting for Christ to come back, to bring judgment against this wicked world, destroy everyone who's still in rebellion against him. Live your life with him. But this applies to patience in every area of life. Wait for things to work out in God's timing. The Bible often uses agriculture as an analogy because most people are familiar with it. That's less true now, but still the point is there. Wait, things have to happen for you to be prosperous. They can't all happen at once. Don't short circuit the good things that are moving in the right direction because you want something right now. You can step on good things. You can get in the way of what you're trying to accomplish. You can put other people off with your impatience. People you need to contribute to an overall plan of prosperity. Paul tells us in Galatians, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Now, he's mainly talking about spiritual things, but the principle is the same. You're doing something good. You're earning money for your family, preparing for the future, taking care of those you love who are in need, investing hopefully in God's kingdom. And you want to be patient. Don't grow weary in doing those things because there's not an immediate reward. You're not, you know, you're not trading fives for tens. Uh, these things take time. Be patient. A harvest from doing good for the Lord will come in one way or another. And if you're investing wisely in some sort of business endeavor, investing in the stock market, do wise, follow what we're talking about here, and there's every bit of good chance that things will come to you well. And most importantly, if you're walking faithfully with God, He will make sure you prosper. Now, He rewards you with what He values, not necessarily mansions and Cadillacs, but things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Oh, patience, there it is. That's a reward in itself. Patience is a virtue. It is good and good for you, and is good for you to share with others. Love is patience. It is unloving to be impatient. It can be hateful to be impatient. Hate being the opposite of love. Now, investing, our topic for today. Growing your wealth for the future. Now, when doing this, do not lose sight of your eternal future. Jesus said, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now again, Jesus is talking spiritually primarily. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He says elsewhere, criticizing some, your heart is far from me. Those verses work together. If our treasure is Christ, our heart should be with Him. If our heart is with Him, He should be our treasure. Thinking about Him and what He wants, how we invest in His kingdom, how we let Him work His way in our lives for our benefit and His glory. Those are good things. Let your treasure be Him. Let your heart be with Him. Let that be the most important thing. Everything else is secondary. All the wealth of this world is secondary. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world, yet lose his eternal soul? Now, practically speaking, you're investing, you want to research and investigate, understand what you are getting into. Jesus said, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. Now, Jesus, again, talking spiritually. The spiritual is what's important. The eternal is what's most important. But he's talking about counting the cost of following him. He says, he promises there will be trials, tribulation, and persecution to those who follow Christ faithfully. But if you understand who he is and what he has done, that he is God in the flesh who came down to suffer and die on the cross, to take the punishment we deserve for our sins, to win for us the gift of love and grace rather than the judgment we deserve for our law breaking, our sin, our coveting, our greed, our stealing, our hating, our lusting, our lying. If we understand what he's done for us, we understand he is worth everything this world has to offer. So, again, following him is worth everything. Having Christ outweighs everything of this world. But Jesus is also speaking a statement of common wisdom here. He's teaching the spiritual from the practical that everyone knows. If you want to build a tower, don't start by building the foundation and see if you can complete it. Make sure you have what you need to complete the project, or wait till you've saved enough for the project, or determine to create a more modest project. This, again, a statement of common wisdom. Make sure you know what you're getting into. Make sure there's a plan to get to the end from where you are. Understand what the steps are in getting to your goal. And if you don't have those steps taken care of, shore up your foundation. Save up for the journey before you begin. And something to keep in mind, impatience undermines this process. That will stop you from counting, figuring, planning. You just blitz through until you hit a wall or run out of money. After all, any investing endeavor must start producing cash, producing a positive cash flow or positive growth before you run out of money. Buy and hold. You put your money into things you think will go up in value, or at least hold value in a monetary crisis. Coins, stamps, other collectibles. It could be good to put some money in these things, especially if you become very well studied in these things. But you have to make it a real investment. You can't be too emotionally attached. You have to be willing to sell when the price is good. You have to be patient when buying. Can't buy emotionally. You look for a good deal. And the more time and expertise you devote to that, the more money you can make. But again, you have to uh, apportion your time in a way that's most productive. Most people can't get into something this like this in lieu of their job. You have to become quite an expert. Maybe open up a storefront or be a traveling buyer to make a living at this. Gold and silver. Gold and silver have never been worth nothing. They've always had value, but that value does fluctuate over time. Gold has been a strong investment in recent years. It's good to have some money in these things. But for most of my life, gold has been worth less than a tenth of what it's worth now. So you don't want to put all your money there either. Cash is good to have around. You want to have some cash for emergencies. And you want to also have some around to be able to take advantage of opportunities. Credit can be available for that also. Quick ready credit can be set up and can be useful, but you don't want to ever be a slave to debt. While it can be useful, as the old saying goes, debt is a useful tool, but uh, a good servant, but a terrible master. So you want to have some cash around so you can take advantage of opportunity. You will not be stuck when something good comes along or when an emergency comes along. But you don't want to keep all your money in cash either, because cash tends to lose money in value, particularly if there's irresponsible government printing of money. Real estate. Real estate has historically been a very solid, excellent investment. You don't want to sell real estate lightly. You want to put your money into it wisely, but it can be a very good place to hold and build value and income also. First of all, if you can buy your own home, that can be a great deal because you have to pay money to live somehow or another. But if you could direct that money you're using for rent into actually buying something, that can be a great long-term benefit. And many people over the years have used home equity to finance businesses and other enterprises. In fact, stable, reliable property rights is a key to prosperity around the world. Uh, Nations without strong property rights, where people can't really have firm hold of the property where they live or do business, that really uh, makes wealth building very difficult because nothing is sure. But also real estate, you can invest for rental properties, build income. There have been some new difficulties in this recently, though, with all the work from home endeavors and online uh, businesses messing up local businesses, making it difficult to do business locally. That's hurt commercial real estate. Many office buildings are empty. Retail spots are not in as much demand. Home real estate, residential real estate, that always tends to be more of a headache, difficulty dealing with people. You can get some help with a rental management company, but they're probably going to take about 6% of your income. Uh, these are things to investigate, things to consider, but real estate still can be very good. But one long-term thing we have to look at, populations are no longer growing like they used to. And at some point, we're not replacing our population. Populations are starting to decline. China is at the head of this right now. Real estate that they've overbuilt for um, crazy economic incentive reasons is becoming Uh, what was steadily a great investment for generations is suddenly tanking in value, and it's really shaking things up. It's very difficult for people in China right now for lots of reasons. Stocks. We'll talk more about that later. That's something you can buy and hold to grow in value. It can also produce income, bonds also. All right. Investing in someone else's effort to make money. That can be a small business partnership. It can mean lending to someone starting a business or trying to grow a business. Again, it can mean stocks. We'll talk more about that. Now, the smaller the business, the more it is like a partnership. There's I think a biblical principle that applies here. Partnering with those serving the same master ensures you share the same priorities. Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? Now, I think this primarily applies to doing the work of the kingdom. We want to do that work, make sure we're doing it with believers. We don't want to pollute the message or tie ourselves to people that are not going to have the priorities of pleasing the Lord, or who are going to chase after sin rather than what Christ wants. So there's much more that can be said about that. I believe that also applies to marriage. The church usually applies this to marriage. It's a very bad idea for a believer to marry a non-believer. Ask any believer that's been in that situation. It is quite a trial. Uh, we we want to be able to serve the Lord together. When we are uh, when one of us is a believer and the other is not, we can't understand things the same way. Uh, Christ is always to be most important to us, even more than our spouse. I don't know that an unbeliever can truly understand and appreciate that. Now, not everyone would agree, but I think many would, that this applies to a business partnership, one where you are both making decisions. Now, sometimes you can invest in a partnership where you're not involved in making the decisions. But if you are working together trying to achieve a goal, you want to be partnered with a believer. A non-believer is not going to understand always why you don't want to cut corners or break the rules, why pleasing God is more important than making profit. They may constantly nag you to bend the rules, to do things you're not comfortable doing. Resist that. You will never regret honoring Christ at every turn. You will regret when you give in to nagging to do otherwise. And as I say this, I see where this could also apply to marriage. Uh, but I think it's best for a partnership where you're both making decisions on how to prosper, that you're both believers, you're both serving Christ first. Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. A non-believing partner may only understand that very superficially. If they're not a believer, they haven't bought into that. Now, what about advisors, financial advisors, mentors, academic advisors, lawyers, accountants, etc.? Uh, Proverbs tells us plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. It's good to get advice where you need it, specialized advice, experienced advice. And I don't think that necessarily has to be a believer. If you can find a good, mature believer with the expertise you need to advise you, that is wonderful. But the primary thing here is you need someone who's qualified to give you the advice you need, that has the experience, training, uh, legal and regulatory knowledge to help you navigate what you need. And in this situation, apply what Paul tells us about spiritual advice, test all things, and hold to what is good. Listen to these advisors who built up knowledge in their field and listen carefully, see what applies to you. Test all things, see what sounds truly wise, and use that. That will help you find the right advisor as well as sort through the right advice. Now, someone in a mentor relationship, if they are telling you aspects of how to live your day to day life in business, there can certainly be a spiritual aspect in that. And that may be more important for that person to be a believer. It depends on the scope of how they're mentoring you. People will disagree on what I've just told you about what advisors should be. And I think the more they are a long-term advisor, almost a partner in your future, the more important it is that they are a believer. Remember, seek first the kingdom of God. Jesus gives us a counsel for primarily for subsistence, what we need to live, but I also think it applies to going beyond that to prosperity, financial prosperity. That's not evil. It should not be the first thing we want there. Now, God wants us to have some level of prosperity. If we devote 100% of our time, thought, and energy just to survive, we have nothing for God. That's not what He wants. He wants us to have time for leisure, for contemplation, for relating to Him, for getting to know Him, devoting time to our family and loved ones. So He does want us to have some prosperity. But He says, seek first the kingdom and His righteousness. God's kingdom and His righteousness. Be right with Him. Make sure you are part of the kingdom, that you have surrendered yourself to the King, Jesus Christ, and you are living a life that honors Him. And He will provide what you need. And He will guide you in devoting your time and energy to what is good and what is right, including making a living, building wealth for the future, building wealth to invest in His kingdom. This is about attitude and priorities. From a good attitude flow good actions and decisions. What's important to Christ should be important to us. Our business can be important to God. Our investments can be important to God. But always remember, He is on the throne. Make sure you are right with Him. And remember, He mocks those who mock. He resists the proud. He gives grace to the humble. Humble ourselves to know we are not in charge. He is great. We are small. He is the one we depend on. And He is the one we need to bless whatever we're investing in. Now pray to be a good steward over what God gives you. what he has given you, and whatever he will give you. After all, why would he pour value into a container that cannot hold it? Why would he give you wealth if you're going to spend it frivolously on something that's no good? Why would he uh, give you all these good things if you're not going to put them to good use? If you're going to use them in a bad way, God's better off keeping you poor. You're better off with God keeping you poor. I've done many, many years of jail and prison ministry. I've run into many guys who tell me the only time they get closer to God is when they're locked up in jail. And I tell them, well, then that's the best place for you. If the only place you get closer to God is in jail, don't be surprised if he keeps bringing you back there. That's the best place for you. It doesn't have to stay that way, but uh, God loves you. He's trying to get the word to you. Try listening when you're not in jail. So, uh, but if you're someone God can pour his word into in broader context, he will. If he can pour wealth into you and you will put it to good use for providing for your family and loved ones, for saving for the future, for investing in his kingdom. God is happy to do that. Proverbs 3 tells us, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. Now, Proverbs are rules of thumb. They're a, a wisdom about the way God has created the world, and they're wisdom of how to walk in a way that honors God. They are not absolute truths about what's going to happen. Just because you honor God with your wealth doesn't mean he's going to make you rich. Again, he may bless you in ways that the world does not appreciate. Your barns may not overflow with the wealth of this world, but your spirit may overflow with the wealth of the kingdom of eternity. But this is a good rule to live by. This is something we can trust, that we honor the Lord with our wealth. If we honor Jehovah with what we receive from him, if we devote some of it to him and the work of his kingdom, we can trust that that's part of him blessing us. If our hearts are turned over to him first. Solomon tells us in Ecclesiastes, whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. For in the realm of the dead where you are going, there is neither working nor planning, nor knowledge nor wisdom. Now he's saying this life is limited. When you find something good to do in this world, work hard at it. Keep at it. Don't be lazy. Don't be lackadaisical. Devote proper time, effort, and attention to your work. Because there's only so much time to do it. Do it well. Do it in a way that honors God. Now, when you're investing, ask a lot of questions. Determine the risk and the reward. What are the initial costs of getting into some sort of business enterprise? Whether you're investing in someone else's business or you're partnering in that business or starting your own. What are the initial costs to get started? What are the ongoing costs? Uh, what are your liabilities? What unseen responsibilities are you taking on? What can cost you in the future? What can potentially cost you more than you're even investing? What laws and regulations apply? Uh, you may need help with that, consulting help with that, certainly research. What is the competitive situation? And that's not necessarily who is operating the same business and where and how they're doing it. It can mean something much more broadly. What else can people do with their money? Buy your product or service, or spend that money on entertainment or vacation. Whatever else they can spend their money on is something you're competing with. So you need to make sure what you have to offer is of value. And in doing that, it helps to understand, who does your business plan to serve? It helps to clearly answer that question going in, or you're going to have a hard time narrowing the focus of what you do to something that's practical. A general ethical, moral question: are you producing something good? Not just of good value to people, but is it good? Is it something good for people to have? You want to think about that. Don't want to invest in something that's going to harm your customers, particularly on a spiritual level. Now, do people already understand the value of what you produce? This is an important question a lot of people don't think about. Are you producing something that people already know they need? If you go into business like dry cleaning or carpentry or cleaning houses or roofing, people know what that is, the value of it, why they need it, and you don't have to teach them that. But if you're producing something that's new, uh, a new product or service, you have to educate the public as to their need for it, why it's of value. That is a much bigger hurdle to climb, and it requires more capital. It requires more of an in-depth plan and quite a bit more work. Now, certainly it's been done many times, but just be prepared. That's a harder hill to climb. Um, Business Advisor many years ago wrote that if you're starting your first business, starting a business is very old, ancient, something everyone knows about, everyone is familiar with it, and just go into a situation where you can do it better than most of the people around you, or whether there's maybe a dearth of people providing that particular need, or there's room for more people in the market. Uh, Community is underserved. Now, what actually has to happen to start making money? And do you have enough resources to get to that point? When you're dealing with a new business or a greatly expanding business, the trick is you have to start taking in more money than you spend before you run out of startup capital, or else everything suddenly grinds to a halt. That's what success is. It's been said that every business that fails is undercapitalized unless you quit with a pile full of money, because you're not able to produce a positive cash flow before you run out of money. Now, what are key people providing? What happens if you lose one of those key people? How hard are they to replace? Do you need legal or professional consulting? Are responsibilities of the people involved clear? Particularly the people in leadership, the people you're investing with, partnering with, working with. And related to that, how will funds be handled securely? If a business makes a lot of profit and somehow you never get your share, you've lost. There needs to be a plan in place for that. And this is just the beginning of questions you can ask. As you get into it, you'll think of more. Write them down. Look for answers and be prepared. You may not get an answer to every last question you come up with, or someone wisely advising you asks. There might be a handful of questions that you just determine you can't answer till you get started. That that's okay. You evaluate those and determine they're in the scope of your margin for error, and then you can proceed. But make sure they're not huge questions and with very volatile possibilities on the answer. Now, beware the danger of pride. Success is only by the grace of God. If you have success in business, you may be tempted to think you're brilliant, you're great, you are wise, you uh, know so much more than everybody else. And it's not to say you don't play a part in your success. Your hard work, your good decisions matter, but be aware of the trap of pride if you are successful in business and investing. Now, passive investing, buying stocks and bonds. We're talking about large companies that you have no control over. You're buying stock in Nvidia or an S&P 500 um, index fund. You have no control over those companies. Now, small stockholders hypothetically have a vote, but unless you have a significant share of that company, it's not going to matter. Again, you want to research and ask lots of questions. Do not just look at the past. See what affects the future. Changes in the market, uh, changes in government regulation, whatever is going on in the world in that industry. What other industries are creeping in and of having an effect on it, which might undermine that industry. Is an entity being run well? Try to see it firsthand. See how their manufacturing works or their retail enterprises are run or whatever it is. The closer you can look, the better. Think about what industries do you already have some expertise or knowledge about? Something you've worked in for a while. You can become an expert in a particular industry, even if you haven't worked in it, even if you don't have expertise. I think it was great investor Peter Lynch advised you with you know a reasonable, not crazy amount of effort can become a relative expert in an industry and know more about it than 95% of the people in the public. And you can see when somebody's making good decisions, bad decisions, where their practices change and improve or decline. You can go to their stores and see who's doing a better job, Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever business it is. So think about where you already have some knowledge that gives you an advantage. Um, think about what companies affect one another. Can a foolish decision by one company significantly benefit a rival? How much do other companies affect your company? Pay attention to the people in charge. How long have they been there? Are they stable? Are they the ones responsible for recent success or failure? And be sure to understand what a business does and how it works before you invest in it. That's an old Warren Buffett rule. He said, I don't buy a business unless I understand how it works, how it functions, how it makes money. You don't want to buy things just blindly on you know a few investment advice markers. You want to know what's going on. So, and this applies investing in small businesses, medium-sized businesses where you invest directly, or buying stocks and bonds. You want to understand how bonds work, um, and it's important to uh, dig deep, especially if you're buying individual stocks. You want to know. their debt, uh, their history, their cash flow. And things can be deceiving. I remember many years ago looking at a company and all their financials, everything looked really good, except it concerned me that they had a lot of debt. So I held off. And then I checked a year later, um, their debt had been cut in half, their stock had gone up 50%, and on paper they looked like an even better investment. But it's not like you're going to beat that 50% increase over the last year. But on paper they look like a better investment. Though I would have been much better investing the year before. So things can fool you. That's why it's important to diversify, spread out your risk. The Bible speaks of this too. Solomon tells us in Ecclesiastes 11, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. Again, the agricultural analogies, because that's what people know about. But invest in a number of different things. You don't know where success or calamity might come. Diversify in industries. Make multiple investments. Make a mix of safer and riskier. Some money in the bank, some money in stocks. Try to avoid vulnerability to the same economic forces. You want both large and small companies. You don't want everything equally affected by the government. That's why it's good to invest in more than one country internationally. Uh, invest in stocks and bonds because they particularly in hard times when stocks go down, bonds can go up. Um, when we had a recent spat of inflation, bonds actually went down because interest rates went up in response to inflation. But stocks held their value with regard to inflation because if the money's worth less, people are going to require more to part with their stocks. So different things can go up and down. So diversify. And one natural way to do this is mutual funds or ETFs, which is a similar thing. I'll let you figure out the difference. Research that yourself. ETFs seem like a much better deal, but they invest in multiple companies with a certain plan, and you can spread out your risk that way. But again, make sure everything's not just in the S&P 500, the largest companies. You can make a lot of money there. People have, but you want uh, to spread that risk out in different ways. Stocks, bonds. Of course, early in life, you can take more risks with more growth, and later on, you want more secure, more income, uh, uh, more value-oriented investments. So think about these things, pray about these things, study about these things, and at some point, you actually have to pull the trigger and do something. Take a risk, or you just keep your money in the bank or in a money market fund or CDs. But even that, with inflation, can be a risky endeavor. It's good to diversify where you put your wealth, but the ultimate key to building wealth in this world is living below your means, living on less than you take in. That's where all your millionaires come from. And our goal as Christians is not necessarily to become wealthy, though if we are good stewards, we can do good things with that wealth, and there's nothing wrong with that. Job was a rich man. Abraham was a rich man, but they were devoted to God first. Uh, our devotion to Him is of eternal value because no matter how much wealth we have in this world, we cannot buy one moment of our eternity. Christ bought that on the cross. He shed his blood to redeem us. So devote yourself to him. Surrender your life to him and trust in him to provide for your needs, and pray for wisdom in using the gifts he's given you in material things, in your own abilities, to use the gifts you've been given well to honor him and to do good for people. And when you provide a good product or service as a job or a business, or you invest in a good company, you're doing good for people. That you can't sell a product or service to someone unless they see value in it, unless they would rather have what you're selling than the money you're asking for it. So that there are many ways to serve and do good for people. Just keep Christ first in your life, in the forefront of your mind, not just on Sunday morning, but every day of the week. Thank you so much for listening.